My name is Donald and I live in the beautiful city of Charlotte, North Carolina. I have been a proud employee of the city for over a decade now, clocking in countless hours to ensure Charlotte runs smoothly. For 11 wonderful years, I've shared my life with my devoted wife, Cynthia. She had been my backbone, raising our son, Luke, and making our cozy house a home. Cynthia had always been the perfect stay-at-home mom, the most loyal partner you could imagine. Well, more on that later. We met right here in Charlotte. Our connection was instant and our romance intense. We were just two young kids, completely smitten, dreaming of a future together. We were barely 30 when we married in front of all our friends and family. Our love story had always seemed so wonderful. We met young, fell hard for each other, and decided to build a beautiful life together in the heart of North Carolina. Cynthia cared for our little world at home while I worked. We celebrated our small victories together and faced hardships hand in hand, a true team at the end of the day. In our third year of marriage, we welcomed a new member to our team. Our son Luke arrived and became our entire world. Our bond as a family grew stronger with each passing year. Luke's arrival marked a joyful new chapter in our life. It was no longer just about me and Cynthia anymore, but the three of us, the perfect little family. Our 11th anniversary arrived with much fanfare from our loved ones. Over a decade of being together, dreams, sacrifices, and now a beautiful 7-year-old son who embodied our love. We spent that special evening with our closest friends and family, each one a treasured witness to our decade-long journey of devotion and partnership. Life truly felt perfect. Well, more on that a little later. I had my dream job with the city, a beautiful wife who kept our home, and an incredible son. Well, my so-called perfect life was about to unravel. A secret buried 8 years ago on a night that was meant to be a fun and harmless celebration of friendship. A secret that would shatter everything I thought I knew. There was nothing unusual about that afternoon at work. I was at my desk going through the usual routine when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Dana, one of Cynthia's close friends. Dana was one of those ride-or-die friends Cynthia had from her college days. She had been a constant presence at all our family events over the years and was part of so many treasured memories. Dana's text simply asked, "Can we talk? Can you meet me after work?" This was strange since she had never asked to meet me alone before, but I brushed it aside, figuring it was probably about planning some surprise for Cynthia or something related to Luke's school. After work, I found Dana waiting for me at our usual restaurant. As soon as I sat down, I got straight to the point and asked what this mysterious meeting was all about. Dana took a deep breath and said it was about Cynthia. She couldn't hold this in any longer. It had been eating away at her for years. Okay, what about Cynthia? Dana's eyes suddenly filled with tears as she began recounting an incident from 8 years prior. On a girls' night out celebrating an old sorority sister's bachelorette party, Cynthia had crossed the line. Under the heavy influence of alcohol, my loyal wife had been unfaithful. Dana went on to reveal the sordid details. Cynthia and Dana herself had ended up participating in a drunk threesome with some random guy they met at a bar that night. Dana started stuttering. I have proof as she slowly slid her phone across the table. The screen displayed graphic video clips and images of Cynthia and this unknown man, their naked bodies intertwined. My body went numb, my mind spinning, trying to comprehend this bombshell. The images and footage were crystal clear, leaving absolutely no room for denial. And there was Dana herself, clearly present and active participant in the whole thing. Dana broke down in tears, apologizing again and again. We were so drunk, I don't even remember how things got to that point. I should have stopped it, but her voice kind of slid down to a whisper. I looked at her, my brain unable to grasp the magnitude of the betrayal laid bare before me. I sat there in stunned silence, my picture-perfect world shattered into a million pieces in an instant. I made Dana promise not to breathe a word of this to anyone, and she swore she would take it to her grave. I told her I needed time to process this alone. I left the restaurant in a daze, barely aware of my surroundings. The drive home felt like the longest of my life. When I finally got home, Luke was happily watching cartoons, oblivious to the life-changing news that had just rocked our family to its core. The days that followed were torturous. Cynthia went about life as usual, while I spouted internally, my mind flooded with sickening details of her sordid indiscretion. My best friend, James, noticed my odd silence during our daily phone catch-ups. The immense burden of holding this secret grew too heavy, and I finally confessed everything to him. James reacted with the same shock and horror that I had felt in that restaurant. As I recounted every graphic detail, his expressions mirrored the sheer revulsion and pain coursing through me. He essentially told me, "I can't tell you what to do here, man, but you need to ask yourself whether you can ever truly trust Cynthia again after this. She kept this from you for 8 whole years. That's a long time to lie to your husband and the father of your child. After days of agonizing internal debate and countless more conversations with James, I decided I needed to consult with a divorce attorney to at least understand all my options. Given the undeniable evidence of Cynthia's unfaithfulness, I met with the attorney, explained the traumatic situation, and presented the evidence. A few brutal days later, I made the painful decision to file for divorce. Despite my enduring anger and resentment towards Cynthia, it was absolutely heartbreaking to take this step. Her appalling betrayal and deceit over all those years had led us here, and there was no turning back now. I somehow managed to keep my composure around Cynthia in the weeks that followed, not letting on that I knew the truth about her sordid indiscretion. I had no intention of confronting her until it was absolutely necessary. We still lived together under the same roof, but any remaining intimacy and affection was long gone. About 6 agonizing weeks later, the divorce papers were ready to be formally served. I made sure I wasn't there to witness Cynthia's reaction firsthand, but I could well imagine the shock and utter disbelief she must have felt. Sure enough, midway through an important meeting at work, my phone buzzed like it was on fire. It was Cynthia, no doubt reeling. She demanded, "What the hell is this?" I calmly replied, "You'll find out when we go to court," and hung up. Her calls kept coming in, one after another, but I ignored them all. I just couldn't deal with her hysterics and emotions at that moment. Not when I was still battling my own swirling torment. I took a deep breath, put on a brave face, and forced myself to return to work, trying desperately to focus on the routine around me. When I returned home later, the house was eerily quiet. A note on the kitchen counter informed me that a hysterical Cynthia had taken Luke to stay with her parents. I let out a deep sigh of relief. The inevitably ugly confrontation could wait a little longer at least. The next few weeks were chaotic, to put it mildly. Cynthia had immediately hired her own divorce attorney, and our once warm and loving home descended into a bitter battleground. We tiptoed around each other during this difficult time, our interactions limited to terse exchanges and cold glares. It was such a trying period, but I kept reminding myself this is all for the best in the long run. My poor son Luke remained largely oblivious to the war zone his home had become. I did everything I could to shield him from the pain and chaos as much as possible. At our first divorce hearing, a defiant Cynthia made a bold demand for alimony payments. She argued that as a stay-at-home mom all these years, she had sacrificed her own career ambitions to dedicate herself to raising Luke and maintaining our home. The female judge, however, saw things very differently. Citing Cynthia's proven infidelity and her clear ability to now go out and find employment, the judge swiftly denied the brazen demand for alimony. Custody of Luke was the next battlefield. As angry and deeply hurt as I was, I still wanted whatever was genuinely best for my son. Despite my rage towards Cynthia, I could not deny she had been a caring and devoted mother to Luke all these years. After much difficult negotiation, we agreed on a 50-50 shared custody arrangement. This felt like a small relief, a silver lining amidst the non-stop turmoil. I took comfort knowing Cynthia's empty threats to cut me out of Luke's life completely held no actual weight in the eyes of the court. Based on an equal custody agreement and Cynthia's need to now find steady employment, the judge ordered Cynthia to pay $225 per month in child support. For once, the courtroom site of so many bitter battles over the past month finally bore some good news. As the dust began to settle from the courtroom clashes, Cynthia officially moved out of our rented marital home to go stay with her parents. Jobless and burdened by impending child support payments, it was really her only logical choice at that point. Meanwhile, I continued living in the only home Luke had ever known. In the weeks that followed, Cynthia managed to secure an office job downtown. I knew it was a difficult adjustment for her after so many years as a stay-at-home mom. She was clearly ill-prepared for re-entering the modern workforce. Surprisingly, though, she powered through and found something legitimate, a starting point to slowly rebuild some financial stability and independence in her new reality, much like I was trying to do on my own. In accordance with the court order, Cynthia now had to pay $225 each month in formal child support to me. It wasn't a huge monthly amount by any means, but symbolically, it signified a seismic shift in our former family roles. The once comfortable stay-at-home mom was now forced to contribute financially and share the burden of parental duties equally. For so long, I have been the sole breadwinner entirely responsible for Luke's material needs. During this painful transitionary period, I made an important decision about my living situation. I decided I would continue renting the marital home until the lease finally ended. After that, I would take a bold step forward and buy a home of my own. A fresh start for Luke and I. The thought of a new home that Cynthia had never stepped foot in, that was solely mine and Luke's, gave me needed hope and the will to keep marching onward through the endless turmoil. In the difficult weeks that followed, Cynthia missed making her very first child support payment deadline. I did not let it slide. Out of principle, rather than spite, I swiftly contacted Child Support Services to report the violation of the court order we both now had to abide by. In response, Cynthia's family, who had been neutral thus far, shockingly turned against me. Over the years, I had found a second family and steady support system in them. Now, all I saw was scorn and resentment in their eyes. They vehemently defended Cynthia, blamed her despicable actions that night solely on her intoxication level. In their biased eyes, she could apparently do no wrong. They chose to ignore the 8 long years of ongoing deceit that followed and focused only on defending her in the present. Their drastic disapproval of me did not deter me one bit. I reminded myself this was not about revenge or punishment. It was simply about demanding responsibility from Cynthia for her deplorable choices and actions. She had made her bed and now, like the rest of us, she would have to lie in it and deal with the harsh consequences. I took some comfort in knowing the court saw things the same sensible way. Meanwhile, Cynthia's toxic friend, Dana, the one who had lit the match that started this entire forest fire, moved away and distanced herself from the fallout. The immense guilt and burden of the horrific secret she held for years had clearly taken an exhaustive mental and emotional toll on her. Dana wanted no part of the destruction left in the wake of her truth-telling. The ones who have been there on the girls' nights out over the years, yet remained oblivious to events of that one fateful night. Until now, they felt deeply betrayed by Cynthia's despicable actions that evening and Dana's years of keeping silent before dropping the atomic bomb on everything. One by one, Cynthia's former friends began to ice her out of their lives completely. The person they thought they knew had turned out to be someone entirely different. During this painful upheaval, my son Luke and I grew closer than ever. Focusing my energy on him gave me purpose and hope. Despite the world crumbling around us, Luke gave me the strength to get up each morning and keep fighting through the darkness that had enveloped our lives. Well, in my opinion, I think he did the right thing. Most people would say, hey, it happened 8 years ago. It was a mistake. If Cynthia's friend, Dana, didn't have a guilty conscience, he would have never known his wife cheated on him on this so-called girls' night. Once you break trust in a relationship, it's almost impossible to get back, even if you decide to reconcile. Do you think the betrayed spouse will always be at peace mentally or able to trust again? Even if she gave up her privacy, it's not the same.